Hi, I'm Betsy Jordan, and this is Behind the Curtain IMO. I read a book not so long ago by these two gentlemen, former President Bill Clinton and James Patterson. Now, I happen to be a James Patterson fan, and this book was about a mystery around what happens if the power grid goes down or we get hacked, the government gets hacked. What happens? That was a danger during President Clinton's administration. He knew that that was the next sort of frontier for criminals. So he wrote a fiction book about it because he felt like, I'm paraphrasing, but I know it seemed like that was one way to get at a broader audience. And so he and his friend, James Patterson, teamed up. Now, our election was influenced by cybercrime in 2016. And the way we know this is because of the Mueller report. We know there was a lot of accusations out there. There were a lot of people who didn't want to believe that. What we now know that, we know it for sure and for certain after 2022 elections, that we had Russian influence over our elections. So when people say that was never proven, people shouldn't talk about that, you need to understand that they are denying the truth. Truth is that there has been Russian influence or attempted influence on our elections. And that is getting to be a more and more prevalent concern, not less, more. So we've had foreign actors trying to influence our elections. That's not right, but that is what is happening. I've said this many times before. It's one of my favorite coaching phrases, which is rocks are hard, water's wet. That is what you've got. Now, you can't change it. You're not going to change it in the next 6 months. You're not going to change it in the next 60 days. You're going to need to accept that this is a fact, that we know that foreign actors have been influencing or attempting to influence our elections. They have gone further in influence. So, a friend mentioned this to me, that she was hoping to vote for Kamala Harris, but that she was afraid she was going to take us into a world war and restrict our freedom of speech. Now, look, I have no doubt that's what she's heard. I have no doubt that somebody took something that Kamala said and took something from here and here and here and put it all together and decided this is what it meant. But I would like to talk to you a minute about how it feels to be a candidate and how it feels to be someone who's trying to make up their mind between two people. I mean, there's a distinction between those two things. I'm not meaning if it feels like I'm talking down to you, I am not. Do not intend to. I'm trying to make a point here. If you come at compassion for a person running for office, they're not going to be able to say all the words that I get to say to you here. There's no luxury for that. Certainly not in a debate, to have a long period of time to explain everything to you. Now, President Biden did his best to educate. And so there were a lot of times when he was doing this long form explanation kind of thing. And it doesn't fit well in a medium like this. Kamala is great at getting her point across pretty quickly. But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Like the fact that the Mueller report took months and months and months to investigate, right? And I'm not sure how long it took President Clinton to write this book, but James Patterson is prolific. And so I'm sure he has a method and a system that would help him write this book quicker, right? But when you're speaking as a candidate, you can't explain everything. So when she says we're going to have the most lethal fighting force in the world, that's her intention. Why would she say that? Okay, she's a woman running for the highest office in the land, right? And the most influential country in the world. Why would she need to have the most lethal fighting force in the world? Well, I believe it's as a deterrent. I believe she said that as a deterrent, because that's what I would want to have, is somebody who had my back, right, as President of the United States. I would want my military to be honored. I would want my military to be trained. I would want them to know exactly how to do what they needed to do as quickly as possible. And that is not because I want to start a war. That's because I want people to understand I'm going to keep myself armed even if I'm not in a war, and especially because I'm not, okay? So that's what I think she meant. Do your own research. But we are threatened by foreign actors. And so the fact that people thought she was going to restrict our freedom of speech because she wanted to regulate social media, that is a big jump. So I need to invite people to take a moment to think about this. Social media, which we're speaking on right now, these are businesses. These are like the same thing as like newspapers or advertisers or anything. And we regulate those. We already regulate those. And why would we want to do that with social media? Well, we want to not have that kind of foreign influence on our elections or on anything else. AI is coming down the pike. We need to know when it's AI and when it's not. We do need to know that because it's becoming harder and harder to distinguish. Right? We need to stop hate speech. And I'm not kidding, because hate speech incites violence in the rest of our country. And we have laws against that. So why wouldn't we regulate social media according to that? It is not a regulation of your freedom of speech. It may be a regulation of expression of that speech. But we even have regulation of how protesters can protest. So I just think that's putting lines in the road so we don't run into each other. And so when she says she wants regulation for that, it's because of the foreign actors that we're worried about. It's also because of hate speech. And if I were her, you know, and I'm not, but if I were a member of Congress or in the Senate, I would be wanting to put some sort of bumpers in the lanes about misrepresentation as well, fact-checking, that kind of thing, and to make sure that that is done all the time. So I know some people had trouble with the fact-checking in debates, but I thought it was a welcome addition because it had us talking about what was real and not spending so much time on what was not. And it had those candidates talking directly to the American people, which is what I thought was missing in the first debate. So I think there's a lot working, and I'm very excited and optimistic about what can happen. So I didn't say all this to frighten anyone. I said all this so that you would understand, because I think with information comes your own power. And while you're at it, while you're listening to me, take an opportunity and share this, because people need to be encouraged to have these dialogues. They need to be encouraged to talk about this. And please just share it, because I want other people to have the same kind of information. Now, I'll be coming to you in the next few videos. I'll be talking about Ukraine and Russia, and I'll be breaking that down into a part 1, 2, and 3, because it's going to be a little like Israel, Gaza, Palestine, and the whole thing. And I just don't want it to be so long that you feel like you've got to take a chunk out of your day. So I'll come to you every day, and you can visit the YouTube channel. The link is below or beside, depending on which medium you're looking at us in, and join us. And you can go back and see the other videos that will go into detail about some of the things that were covered in the debate and have been covered on the campaign trail and are covered in our government just in general. And it's not just national. I do cover some of the North Carolina races, and I will do a little bit more of that as we get closer to the election. And I think I got to get going on that quickly. But for now, this is Behind the Curtain. I'm Betsy Jordan. Thank you for being here.